Hey everyone, and welcome. Every single time you go online or use an app, or even just drive your car, you're playing by a set of invisible rules. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on these hidden systems, the ones that collect, trade, and use your data to make some pretty massive decisions about your life. So let's get into it and see what's really going on. To really get a handle on how deep this stuff goes, let's start with a question that's probably going to affect all of us sooner rather than later. For decades, right, we've paid for our highways with the gas tax. Simple. But now, with more and more of us switching to electric cars, that money is just drying up. The solution that's on the table seems simple, but oh boy, it opens up a whole new can of worms.
And what you're looking at here is a huge shift in how we do things. The old way? Totally anonymous. You paid your tax when you bought gas, and that was that. End of story. But this new pay-per-mile idea, it's a different beast entirely. It has to know exactly where you go and when you go there. It's like the difference between buying a coffee with cash versus using a loyalty app that logs every single latte you've ever had.
This whole shift from an anonymous system to a tracked one isn't just about cars. Not at all. It's the perfect snapshot of the massive data-driven world we're all living in. And right at the very heart of this world is an industry you've probably never even heard of, but one that knows a whole lot about you.
So, who are these companies? Well, they're not the names you see every day, like Google or Facebook. No, these are the shadowy middlemen of the digital world, the data brokers. Their entire business model, their whole reason for existing, is to collect, package, and sell incredibly detailed profiles about every single one of us.
And believe me, this isn't some tiny niche industry. The data broker market was worth a mind-blowing $250 billion back in 2022. That's $250 billion, an absolutely enormous market built completely on your personal information, everything from what you buy to where you've been.
So where do they get all this info? Well, pretty much everywhere. That free weather app on your phone? Oh yeah, it's likely selling your precise location. Your supermarket loyalty card? It's building a profile on you with every purchase, putting you in categories like financially struggling or new parent. And who's buying it? It's not just companies trying to sell you stuff. We're talking financial firms, landlords, and yes, even political campaigns. Remember Cambridge Analytica? They used exactly this kind of data to try and swing elections. But collecting all that data, that's just step one. It then becomes the fuel for these incredibly powerful automated systems that make decisions that can change our lives. We often call them black boxes because a lot of the time, even the people who build them can't tell you exactly how they came to a specific conclusion. And this, right here, is where things get really, really serious. These algorithms are deciding who gets a loan, who gets hired for a job, even who gets out of jail on parole. But here's the thing. They learn from data about our world. And our world is, well, it's full of biases. So it's not a huge surprise that these systems can pick up on and even amplify our own prejudices.
Just take a look at the Compass algorithm. It was used in American courts to guess how likely a defendant was to commit another crime. But an investigation found it was wildly off base and biased. The results were just shocking. Black defendants were almost twice as likely as white defendants to be wrongly flagged as high risk. Think about that. A life-changing decision based on flawed, biased code. So what happens when you try to challenge the black box? This quote says it all. It's from a court case where a man's prison sentence was partly based on his Compass score. And the court basically said he had no right to see how the algorithm worked. The logic was kept a secret, even with someone's freedom hanging in the balance.
And this isn't always just an accident. These same tools can be turned into weapons for what experts call digital repression. This is when governments or other powerful groups use technology on purpose to shut down dissent. Think about social media accounts getting suspended right in the middle of a protest, or activists finding spyware in their phones. It's all about making it riskier for people to speak their minds.
Okay, so that sounds pretty bleak, right? The risks are obvious. Bias, secrecy, repression. But it doesn't have to be this way. There are a lot of smart people, researchers, lawmakers, activists, working on how to build the guardrails we need to make these systems safer. So what can we actually do about it? Let's look at some of the ideas on the table.
One of the most promising ideas out there is something called an algorithmic impact assessment. The easiest way to think about it is like an environmental impact report, but for computer code. So before a government agency can use a new algorithm, it would have to go through this whole process, figure out the risks, check the data for bias, and crucially, let the public take a look. It's all about building in accountability from day one.
And on the tech side of things, computer scientists are coming up with some really clever ways to actually peek inside that black box. One of these techniques is called LIME. So imagine you want to know why a self-driving car decided to make a specific turn. With LIME, you could tweak the input just a little bit, like add a pedestrian into the virtual scene and see how the car's decision changes. It's basically a way to ask the algorithm, what if, over and over again until you figure out what it's really paying attention to.
But hey, change doesn't only come from governments and scientists. The market itself can be a really powerful lever. From the demand side, you've got big brands threatening to pull millions in ad dollars from platforms that put their products next to hateful or toxic content. And from the supply side, you've got a whole new wave of startups popping up that offer things like algorithm audits or privacy-first technologies.
Which brings us right back where we started. Now that we know about some of these guardrails, can we apply them to that pay-per-mile road tax? Is it possible to fund our roads without accidentally building a giant government surveillance machine?
The good news is we absolutely can. The answers are right there. We can give drivers options that don't involve GPS, like just having them report their odometer reading. We can pass laws that force companies to delete any location data as soon as the bill is paid. And of course, we can use basic tech tools like encryption to secure any data we do have to collect. The tools exist, it's just a matter of using them.
So here's the bottom line. The technology itself isn't really the problem. The problem is how we decide to build it, and more importantly, how we decide to govern it. All these issues with bias and surveillance, they're not bugs. They're features of a system that was built without thinking about the consequences. And as this report from the European Parliament puts it so well, building those guardrails means we have to make some tough choices. Protecting privacy might make a system a little less efficient. Making sure it's fair might mean it's not perfectly accurate. There are no easy one-size-fits-all answers here. It's all about trade-offs.
And that really leaves us with the final and most important question of all. As we build these hidden rules for our digital world, we're constantly trying to balance these big ideas. Efficiency, privacy, fairness, security. These aren't just techie decisions for engineers to make in a lab somewhere. They're social decisions about what kind of world we want to live in. So the question for all of us is, who gets to decide?